Well, it's Sunday evening and I'm in the fairy woods. I just wanted to pop out here and comment on a couple things. First of all of this stuff that's on the ground that looks like hail or snow is not. It's actually elm seeds. So that's what that is. Nature's mulch. So I wanted to talk about something. First of all, these ferns that are here, these are bracken ferns, and these are native to this area. And I did bring a couple of them home with us a few years ago in an area where there were a whole bunch. I don't bring things home anymore, but they are spreading happily through here and becoming established, which I'm thrilled for. But also I wanted to talk about what we call weeds, because a weed is just a plant that's growing somewhere that a person doesn't want it to grow. And pretty much most weeds are allowed to grow here because they're just other plants. This is a good example of one, and I have to say I have a really hard time. I've had a hard time finding any way to identify this, and it'll get tall and it gets little yellow flowers on stems, and the flowers look a lot like little miniature dandelions, but more delicate. Anyway, I don't mind this plant. It has a great root system. The foliage is great for composting. I haven't really observed any pollinators going to the flowers, but this one is welcome in the yard and I have it everywhere. So that was one of the things I wanted to talk about, is that weeds are just plants that grow where we human beings don't want them to grow. But most of them have a function, whether it's for pollinators, whether it's for what they bring to the soil. Dandelions, they send down deep tap roots, which brings up nutrients from deep in the soil up into their leaves and the flowers, and make them nutritious for the soil, actually nutritious for people. You can eat the dandelion greens when they're very young in salads. They get bitter as they get more mature. The flowers are great for pollinators, and they also make great jelly. It tastes like honey. It's delicious. Anyway, I let quite a few dandelions grow in the yard and I don't worry about them too much anymore, but the tap roots also take water down deep into compacted soil, and they prefer compacted soil. Their job is to break up the soil and bring nutrients up to the surface. But there are a lot of things like that that people consider weeds that have a job, and an important one, in the earth, in your garden, wherever they are. Some of them are pioneer species and bring nutrients, fix nitrogen in the soil. You just need to read about them and learn what they do and not dislike them so much, because they really do have a function with everything in nature. Oh, here's another one, salsify. This salsify that's here is actually yellow salsify, and when they bloom they look like a kind of a giant dandelion as well, and people don't like them, so they pull them. This is also a salsify here, but it's a purple one and is also called oyster plant. The root of this plant is edible, and both of these plants send down long tap roots. Again, they're annuals. Their root dies, and it ends up being a great source to take water down into the soil, which is so needed here where it's so dry. You just heard Honeycomb voicing his opinion over there. Anyway, think about weeds a little differently, and not that they're so much of a nuisance as they are that they have a job to do. And maybe they're telling you what your soil needs, what your pollinators need. Listen to them, because they do have a job and a function. Also, here's another one. The flower isn't open yet, but this is actually fleabane. It's considered a weed, and that the little pollinators love. Oh, there's some blue-eyed grass right next to it. And vetch, another one. The bumblebees absolutely love this, love it. But we have quite a few things that are considered weeds traditionally in the yards, and they get to stay here for the most part. I mean, the dandelions aren't ever running anything. They live in the lawn. I don't worry about them. If they're in a bed that's hard for me to deadhead them when they start to go to seed, even though some birds really like the seed, they can get out of hand real fast here. So I usually try to pick the seed heads before they go all over the place. So if they're in a bed that's hard for me to climb into and deal with, I usually lift those. But I don't lift the other ones. They stay. I don't see one blooming at the moment, now that I've said that. But anyway, weeds have a purpose, and they're actually just plants that got a bad rep, and the chemical companies wanted you to buy their products and kill them. So, oh, here's another one. This is Curly Dock. And it showed up here at the pond, and it's a welcome visitor, and it can stay, and it's a perennial. Now, speaking of the pond, I did want to say one thing. I wanted to do this earlier, but we have a problem with the rocks falling into the pond along the edges, and one of the biggest culprits of that are the raccoons, because they are always over here playing and knocking things in, even the big rocks that you would think they couldn't knock in. But something else is going on here. And this part of the pond where all this liner is exposed, and I don't know if you can tell, but it kind of slopes right here. I think what's happening is there's a cavern underneath here, and I think that it's starting to sink. And when I mean cavern, I'm talking about from my bunny Sugarfoot, who used to have her pen on the lawn here, and she dug it all up, and she dug a tunnel, and I mean it was huge. She dug a tunnel clear through here, and over here we used to joke about Sugarfoot's condo. It was giant. It went back like 5 feet in one room, but I think that's what's happening. I think somewhere the ground is settling after all these years, and I think it's kind of collapsing into where one of her tunnels was deep down. So we have to configure some rocks, and I'm probably going to remove the strawberries and wood hyacinths, and maybe this iris and the forget-me-nots. I'm going to remove those so that we can put a rock sunken better into the lawn over here, remove the lawn, and sink it real well so it overhangs, because I think trying to place anything on the edge is a lost cause at this point. But anyway, so that's just a couple of things I wanted to mention tonight. And so anyway, give your weeds a second thought, because they may be doing an important job in your yard. The other thing is that I will mention too is that Mother Earth does not like bare soil, and so she will bring in whatever she needs to cover that bare soil, because the sun, the UV on the soil, sterilizes all of the nutrients out of it, and then as that penetrates, a lot of the life dies beneath that. So nature brings in things like dandelions and a weed I can't think of that spreads out from the center that's really common around here. All kinds of stuff. Pineapple weeds, which is actually wild chamomile. Cranesbill, which has flowers. A lot of those things nature will bring in to cover that empty space to protect the soil. So weeds have a job. They have a job. And so if you don't want them there, cover your soil. Plant something. Plant some ground covers. Maybe some edible ground covers. Something for your pollinators. Be creative. If you don't want the weeds to grow, be creative and plant some other things. Or plant them with the weeds. Well, that's my quick video for tonight. Love you guys.